Module 4. All right. So, first things first, this is my reflection for the behavior management assignment, Module 4. First things first, my initial reaction. So, after reviewing all of the different materials, I'd say the biggest thing that stood out to me was just how the focus on how student behavior is often more than just like communication or like actions, but more just like not something that needs to just be controlled, but more like adapted to in different ways. Like I learned in I don't remember what ADFD class, but it was Professor Kirk Franklin talked about a lot how behavior is a lot more than just something that's bad, but then there's different ways you can address it to help the student. But yeah, that's what I would say. One idea that really challenged my thinking, I would say, was from Peter sorry, I'm horrible with names, but Peter Nelms talk about how there's no such thing as a naughty child, which I completely agree with. Honestly, a lot of this brought me back to that class with Kirk Franklin. Just all the different ways you can address, behavior. And, we learned a lot about how behavior is sometimes like a cop-out for students. Like if they don't want to be in math, like they'll learn that they can display certain types of behavior that can get them out of that. So instead of that, finding out why they're displaying that behavior and helping the student, find meaning in whatever it's going on. I would say an example from my own life growing up. I remember growing up and teachers sometimes labeled students as like bad and like just terrible kids, or even me, like I was, a class clown a lot, but I can see how that can like poorly affect those students and like make them not want to, show up and, really give effort into the class. I would say I also gained insight to how much teachers influence student behavior. The way a teacher speaks and responds can either support students or make situations worse. Directly back to what I talked about with Kirk Franklin. It's like if a student doesn't want to do something, they might act up because the teacher always reacts. Or maybe they're just trying to get a reaction on a teacher to like just mess with, or like get the class going a little bit. Or like they're not getting enough attention at home, so they can go to class, cause a ruckus, they get attention from their peers. Like there's always an underlying factor or like reason for behavior, and students' reactions, will either encourage it at times or, really just give them what they're looking for. So I think you got to find out the real core behind the behavior, and that's a lot what Kirk Franklin talked about. Hope you can hear me, my vent, sorry, but yeah. Behavior management versus classroom management. So one key takeaway is that behavior management and classroom management are not the same thing. For example, classroom management might look like having like clear routines at like the beginning of class. Like I always think if I had like they come in, sit in front of the whiteboard. Wow, behavior management would be how I respond to a student who refuses to follow those routines. So that would be, we come in, we sit in front of the whiteboard. This student comes in, he's running around the classroom, and now I need another adult to run the whiteboard. Well, I'm going to go over there and just grill him a new one. Obviously, I wouldn't do that, but that's like when I grew up, that is what would happen. In my opinion, classroom management is more effective as a foundation, like setting, I've noticed that in classrooms where expectations are clear and consistent, kind of like my field placement, they kind of got, you come in, you set your backpack on the side, you can sit for a little bit, then you're going to bring it in, or on the Friday class, like they get into their lines so they can take attendance because there's so many people. There's a lot fewer disruptions overall, which shows how important that is, but it also comes with the flip side when students don't, like on that Friday class, there's so many kids, so they have to line up in like different lines in the gym, and when kids don't follow that, like the teacher will just like chew them out in front of everybody and kind of just takes it away. I don't know. I think there's a right way to do it, but yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like I could go deeper with that, but I'm not, because I'm not sure where to go. Connections to the resources. So part 3. The responsive classroom article showed how language influenced student behavior. For example, for that, instead of saying like stop talking, a teacher might say, I need everyone to focus so we can finish this thing together, which feels more like respectful and like encouraging and like for the students. To directly correlate to PE, I'd say there's like a conflict going on, right? We're playing basketball, kid's getting mad at another kid. Maybe they thought it was a foul, it didn't get called. And instead of going over there and, picking a side or saying, like, what are we doing? Like, we need to figure this out, being like, there's a respectful way to do it. You can get your point across. You can also listen to the other side, then say your point. There's an effective way to communicate from the students, but we need to show that as the teacher and enforce that as the teacher. Yeah. I'm going to go back to Peter and how he explained why labeling students as naughty is harmful. I feel like if a student hears that label over and over and over again, they're going to just start to play that role and just be that person. And, I always go back to this because Kirk Franklin, he always brought up how, you never know what someone's going through at home. And let's say they're not getting attention, so they come to school and, them being naughty gets them attention from their peers. And then, if you have a teacher just saying, like you're just being naughty, you're just being a bad kid. But maybe that's what he's looking out of it. Like, there's no reason that kid wouldn't just play into that role and do it for the rest of their life. And, yeah. Another source, Debbie Breeze talked about strategies to help disruptive students succeed. For example, instead of sending a student out of the room, teacher might just check in with them after the class, or maybe before, real sneaky the next day, and helps build a relationship and trust with the student to where you can, just once you build that connection, you can really just, God, I'm struggling here. Why? Once you build that connection and that trust, it's gonna help. You set those guidelines and those classroom management skills with that student, which is gonna help with behavior management as well. Yeah. Olympia Della Fora highlighted how creativity and engagement can improve student success. For example, I think when students are actively involved, it's super easy to do this with FIAD. The kids are moving and going all over the place. They're less likely to become disengaged or disruptive. So that's why we want every kid to be moving at all times. And it's not a big believer in these long instructions, watching me demonstrate skills for 15 minutes straight. Every kid's gonna click out. You gotta get them going and get every kid involved and accommodate for every skill level as well. Yeah. Part 4, personal teaching reflection. In my future classroom, I plan to balance behavior management and classroom management because I think that is the key to meaningfulness and engagement within the students. So I imagine this by having really clear routines, come in, sit in front of the whiteboard. I like that. On the whiteboard, we're having what we're going to do, what's it going to look like, what I expect from the students, and what I'm going to be doing during. It'll help quick instruction, get the kids moving, get them going. And then also on top of that, I should say the first week of class will be expectations. So if you're going to do this is what's going to happen. There's going to be no confusion from the students for if I were to do this behavior wise, or act up or something like that. What would happen, there would be no question because we would for sure cover that in that first week within those first couple classes. Just really creating that connection and creating those class norms, and the students would also be involved in that. Some strategies I would use would be just building relationships. Yeah, I just covered on that, and I think that's just the most important thing you can do. If you don't have a connection with your students, they can walk all over you like you're nothing, because you're nothing to them. There's no reason they wouldn't. Um, Another thing I would do is just really be careful of my word choice. I think behavior and language have a really strong correlation. Like, there's a lot of trigger words you want to be careful for. There's a lot of just ways you can react. Like, you can react with aggression. Why wouldn't the student like follow back with aggression? There's a way you can like calmly have your tone or calmly speak, and there's a way you can de-escalate things with your tone, your word choice, and all those things. And just in that first couple of days, have it be known like, we're going to be respectful in this classroom. And I mean, if I'm going to say that, you gotta walk the talk. You gotta talk your walk, whatever the phrase is, however you want to go. But yeah. And then I understand that classroom management and behavior management are two very different things, but I feel like they are very dependent on each other. And when you can balance both of them, and both of them can be really strong, that's going to lead to true meaningfulness and a safe environment for every student. And it all starts with connections with students. Yeah, thank you. Module 4.